Okay, it's time to review the Intermezzo in E major, Opus 116, number 4 of Brahms. Haven't played it since yesterday's public run-through. For the most part, it worked fine. There were a few spots that, quite frankly, I needed reminders about. I think I may have mentioned at the very end, when I'm going this diminished chord on top, that for some reason I went somewhere other than there. That's my recollection. I haven't yet reviewed my recording. But as happens so often in this piece and in Brahms, the hands don't align. Because if you look at it, I've got this almost omnipresent E pedal in the left hand, and of all things we've got D sharp in the right hand, which hardly could be said to align, and it's spelled as a D sharp minor, as a 7-7 chord, in other words. So we've got that clash, and even when we move on, here we have A minor in the left hand, and a G sharp minor in the right hand. So that's not going to help. I simply need to know where I'm going. So I'm going to go back to, I think this feels good to go back progressively through time. So this is on A, but it's F sharp minor. It becomes F sharp minor in the right hand by the end of the arpeggio. It certainly doesn't start off that way. You get what seems like a C sharp major turning into C sharp 7th, which would resolve to where? To F sharp or something. And it does. So by now, we still don't have it because we still have this G sharp. So in other words, I could analyze this to death. I simply have to recognize that knowing my right hand and knowing my left hand may be two different experiences, and knowing that they clash with one another in many instances throughout this piece is one of the reasons that something so seemingly innocuous, so deceptively simple, as they say, requires a great deal of concentration to feel, for you to feel at ease. In the cracks. Sorry. And that imitative voice. So wonderful. E major there, so E major, even this note line's E major, and some kind of E. Even reinforces E. And we get the A minor in this. To do that, I keep wanting to go immediately to A, so it comes back to E instead. E, let's see. Voice leading wise, the bottom of the right hand takes over for where the left hand was, and the left hand takes over for the right hand, and then finally we have up to this diminished chord, 7/7. Is easier than 5/3/1. But that's worse. How silly. It's always been 5/4, but it's always been a full chord because that's the way I redistributed it. Have to be careful there. Typically, these lower notes are a third above the bottom. In this case, for example here, these are all a third above the thumb note. Usually the upper. And G sharp is the leading tone. Funny because the left hand is describing a B7 at this point. It's got the D sharp. But by the time the right hand gets to the D sharp, the left hand has moved on. It's Brahms in all his non-harmonic splendor. Here's a strange thought. Leads me to understand even more why Schoenberg was such an admirer of Brahms. So it's a 7/7 of 5. Used thumb. I think it makes my hand more confusing. Goes from E to B7. So back to the middle section. Una corda. I do remember yesterday, it was not a big thing, but I had spelled out pretty well, when the fundamental chord is in the bass, and then the next octave it turns into a seventh, and when it turns into a seventh, and then at least on one of them I turned to a seventh a little early. It was not a big thing, but it's something I should have taught myself. Just as later on when we have a similar figure, I can't generalize about this bottom note always being a third above the chord. In this case, actually, well, it is. No wonder. So when we have later, let's see. That's not. So you want to make sure your generalization finds exceptions. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good generalization for you to remember a pattern. So in this case, it works here. Third above. The seventh at the bottom. Downbeat. And fill it in with a passive down. This is where I think I went to a seventh. To a D, and then it passes to the second. Okay, here's an exception. Here's a fourth. And then the E here is an octave higher than the preceding B. I mean, it's not an octave higher than B, it's in the upper octave rather than the lower octave. There are those thirds. So, reposition, then the seventh, E, okay, good. transforms it from E, E7. Okay. Worthy of a repeat. I was not quite conscious there. Okay, I'm going to go back to the second statement of the A theme. So, it outlines E completely. The bass is all E. And E yet again. So here we transform. Sorry, what am I doing? I'm anticipating the A sharp, so C sharp in the bass, A sharp, almost. This is where it gets its most contrapuntally complex in the right hand. Whoops. Emotionally, wildly, from forte to piano and back again. Full intensity, oh. As if he's afraid to let it out, and then he does. Oh no. Oh yes. Piano. So. No, that's B. Of course it is. I have to go down. There's two groups. My left-hand fingering, I've got to say, felt really arbitrary. As if whatever falls. Well, let's see, I needed a fourth finger down there. I've never marked a fingering, which is a sure indication that I didn't really decide what I was doing. So, or I did it unconsciously, which is almost as bad, because then yeah, let me go back. Third, full triad, crescendo. This is continuous on A sharp, C sharp, and then this next one is fragmented. This is continuous. That's interesting. It's one of those things you do automatically, and if you're not conscious, it can bug you, booby trap your performance. Continuous. Well, A sharp, please. The unexpected A sharp. Gotta find A sharp though. arpeggio, I have to be hyper aware, of that scale. Let's see how it's doing. not bad. I was close to note perfection, which was for me a little bit scary because although I liked being able to remember all the notes and play them all well, the fact is when you start to flirt with perfection, you start to be aware that things are going along really well. And for most of us, there's a certain disadvantage to feeling that you might mar a perfect gem. So better to not let it be that much of a reward, because in a way it's not. You start looking over your shoulder. So interesting though, and I was pleased with how I've pulled it apart. I've got to pull it apart a number of times more and reinforce it in the same fashion to really feel connected to it, but it's a good step.